Has there been a time when your life has been turned upside down? When circumstances have left you with no plan and no foreseeable way forward? When your life was overrun by circumstances bigger and more powerful than you? If your answer to any of those questions is a yes, you know what it is like to live in the tension between the reality of what is and what will be. It's a time of waiting in the darkness, of not knowing, a time of uncertainty. And the season of Advent is precisely that, an in between place. It's the birthplace of hope and the place from which God calls. For a detailed explanation about the meaning of Advent, please refer to my previous video, the link to which you will find up here. My dear friends, today we celebrate the first Sunday of Advent, year C. The community to whom Jeremiah speaks to in today's first reading is living in a time of uncertainty and tension. The Babylonian army devastated Jerusalem. Some of the Jews were deported from their homeland, others were occupied citizens in their own land. And Jeremiah was in prison. It was a time of turmoil and chaos, and it is in this time of darkness that Jeremiah speaks words of hope and restoration. The restoration is not only of their regular life, but also of the Davidic line, as mentioned with these words: in those days and at that time, I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David. One of the chief tragedies of the Babylonian exile was the end of the Davidic dynasty. The Babylonians destroyed David's city, burned Solomon's temple, and took David's heirs into exile. The promises of God seemed to have come to an end. All seemed lost. But God was still faithful, and He promised that a branch will sprout. Historically, of course, the Davidic line did not return to the throne, and hence these passages were in time interpreted to be speaking about the coming of the Messiah. In the reading, there is also an emphasis on justice and righteousness. In the Bible, the phrase justice and righteousness generally refers to the establishment of equitable social and economic conditions for the well-being of all in society, especially the vulnerable ones, such as widows, orphans, and strangers. The Messiah's own lowly birth would prepare him to proclaim a transformative vision of justice and righteousness. While we do not have any invading armies on our doorsteps, many of us would resonate with the fear and hopelessness of the people of Jeremiah's time. Jeremiah's task is our task today. We are called to speak a word of hope and promise in a world often filled with fear and uncertainty, especially in this season of Advent. The complete fulfillment of God's promises has not yet happened, but it is coming. This is the Advent faith and Advent hope. In the second reading taken from St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, Paul wants the Thessalonians to be ready because Jesus Christ is returning. Paul prays that the Thessalonians experience love in abundance. Christians are to love each other extraordinarily, as God expects us to excel in love. At the same time, we shouldn't restrict our love simply to one another, but reach out to those who do not know Christ. Just as Paul and his team were models of Christ's love to the Thessalonians, they are called to love one another. Paul suggests two things: to be holy and to be loving. Holiness is not merely being sinless, it's a calling to be set apart and belong to God. The standard God sets for us is to be blameless. That's why we need God to strengthen our hearts so that we can resist temptation. Every Christian needs both of these qualities, to be holy and to be loving. Holiness without love can become legalistic, and love without holiness risks compromise. Paul urges the Thessalonians to be holy and to love by the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ himself. It is not enough to exist as a Christian. We must move toward excellence. The prime purpose of our Christian life is to please God. As we prepare our hearts in joyful anticipation of Christ's birth during Advent, we might expect to hear something about the birth of a beautiful baby. However, what we hear about is judgment, terrors, and cosmic signs in the Gospel taken from Luke. Jesus speaks in the language of the Apocalypse or Revelation with vivid images. The heavens being shaken, the Son of Humanity appearing in the clouds. Though this is a very gloomy picture, it is not a cause for worry, but for great joy, as these events indicate his return. And his return means the reign of justice as well as peace. Jesus calls his followers to be prepared and aware. This preparedness does not mean we plan every detail ahead of time. Instead, it means to be spiritually ready and working faithfully at the tasks he has given us. The emphasis is not so much on when these things will happen, but rather on the proper disposition we need to have. We should be alert and ready for the coming of the end and not be caught up in either the excessive pleasures or worries of the day. It is said that life should be lived in attentive expectancy, the way one waits for the phone, for a child or a spouse or the doctor to call. We cannot make that call ourselves, but all we can do is to be ready. Quite often people come closer to God or the church only in their old age, and that's why the gospel gives us the message that we need to stay awake at all times. Our present life is a preparation for the next, the afterlife. The readings tell us that the ultimate future does contain a world of hope. Even amidst life's worst woes, God has a plan. What do we do when we see tragedies and difficulties all around us? Jesus says, stand up and raise your heads when everything seems hopeless. It is as if Jesus is saying, don't just sit there. Do something. Get a new perspective. That's what it means to live in hope. More often than not, change is about us, not the circumstances. What if you and I are the righteous branch God is causing to spring up? What if you and I are the ones to execute justice and righteousness in this land? What if you and I, in whatever circumstances we find ourselves today, are called to stand up and raise our heads? I pray that during this season of Advent, we may be able to truly experience hope amidst our struggles. May God bless us all.